All right. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Website Intelligence Podcast, which now we called TWIP. So, welcome, TWIPers. Today we have Miruna from Planable. She's leading the marketing department there in the role of Chief Marketing Officer. And actually, I would start asking Miruna in few words what is Planable or how she would describe the company in few words. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Planable is a social media collaboration platform. So, what that means is that we help teams, marketing teams, work together on social media content. So, it's all about the planning, the feedback, the approval. It all happens in one place. So, we deal with the efficiency of it all, the behind the scenes. And yeah, that's what we do.
Super stuff. So now I think we're gonna come back to Planable, but now we should dive deeper in your background for a couple of minutes. So Matt, why don't you go ahead and ask the first questions? I'll give you the honors.
Sure. So you've been at Planable for, I think it's around 5 years. Am I right?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. And even prior to taking on your first marketing role, when you were back in kind of your younger days, what would you say there was about your kind of upbringing, how you grew up, which kind of led you somehow to where you are today? What kind of unique experiences would you say that you had?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, for one thing, I have a brother and a pretty competitive family, so that probably led me to be a bit more on the workaholic spectrum. Um, there was a lot of creativity growing up too. I think I can say that games were all outside and there weren't many props. So we would just invent games to ourselves. We would just make up our own little worlds and enjoy them. So I would definitely say that contributed too.
And your parents and your brother, they have jobs related to like creative industries as well?
Not really. My father and my brother are both in the legal, let's say, industry, more or less related to it. So very different from ours, I'd say. It's very rigid and strict, and there's little stories that they tell me about their work life that I'm like, oh, that happened to me. And it never happens. It's just, I mean, sure, we can find related stories, but otherwise not really. Um, I didn't, I what, there was a moment in my life in which I actually considered becoming a lawyer as well. But then I quickly changed my mind. And I think that was a very good decision. It wouldn't have been very suited for my personality.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about our childhood, I think each one of us had this cool job or cool aspiration at one point to become something, from firemen to doctors to even myself. I wanted to become Batman, for instance. And what about you, Mira? If you're thinking back then, what were your first kind of job aspirations back then?
Yeah, I think for some reason the only time I remember actually decided or thought of becoming having a specific profession was the one of teacher. It's probably very common. I wouldn't say it's very unique just because it's one of the first professions you actually see with your own eyes while it is happening. So you don't really have um, that much contact with other businesses, other types of jobs. But something about it really caught my attention and my eye. It really made sense for me. I really liked the idea of standing in front of children and telling them what I know. I used to actually practice that with my dolls and whatever stuffed animals I would find in the house. I would line them up on my bed and talk to them. And I also had a chalkboard. So I actually try to make it very lifelike.
Sounds brilliant. And when did you transition from having those kind of ambitions and that desire to want to be a teacher and practicing with your dolls and teddies? What was actually your first job, would you say?
It's I didn't really have that many. I don't have those great stories of celebrities or very successful people that started off working in a diner or a car wash or anything really. I really started when I was in at university. My first job was an internship for this nonprofit organization, and it was a hybrid role of whatever growth. It obviously wasn't called growth, but it kind of included sales, social media, marketing, whatever needed to be done, to be honest. And I also kind of did a bit of social. I tried getting involved in social. Of course, I was very young and that wasn't necessarily a priority for the company, but I tried to get that part to try it out.
Cool stuff. So obviously you transitioned somehow towards marketing. So you started slowly approaching this field. Did you have or which was the first job in marketing? Was this one, or you had like prior marketing experience before?
I think this counts as the first actual job, but I did start in my first year. So I applied for university for an advertising program just because there's no really good reason, honestly. Looking back, I have no idea how I made that decision. It just sounded cool or looked cool. I saw it in a TV series, something. My brother had a friend that worked in advertising. It all sounded great. I think what really attracted me to it was the vagueness of it all. It wasn't, I had no idea what those people were doing, but it sounded dynamic. And I think that was actually what I was feeling. I didn't really like the idea of something that would have very similar tasks all day, every day. And then I joined in my first year at the university. I joined an NGO, a student NGO, which for non-Romanians, I don't think this is actually something for multiple countries, but here, you have these NGOs that kind of mimic how a company looks like, and they discover the world of businesses and companies together. And that's where I actually discovered that advertising wasn't actually what I was looking for, but marketing was, because I was always trying to find this one field that would give me the ability to practice my passion for strategic thinking and strategic actions, which, I mean, that's how I defined it at that time. Now I would say analytics plus strategic thinking, but back then I didn't know what that was. And with a bit of creativity. And that's in this NGO, and this student NGO is actually where I discovered and started to understand a bit more about marketing.
So you're like a kind of natural born like generalist, so to speak, when it comes to marketing.
Yes.
Yeah. And so because I noticed that like in your early kind of formal marketing career, there was some time at Oracle, some time at Uber. So these big companies. How did you find like having this kind of like inbuilt natural like generalist mindset? How did you find going into these kind of very big established companies?
I think these companies and the roles I had there were actually baby steps towards me finding this hybrid world of growth marketing. At Oracle, I discovered my passion for analytics because there was someone in that team in social media that was doing the analytics for the entire team. So for some reason, I thought, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I remember I ended up helping this person a lot. And then that's how I discovered, oh, I like this. This gives me a lot of pleasure. Running these numbers, spending that time in Excel was something that was thrilling to me. And then in Uber, I discovered this world in which you could have kind of a lot bigger overview. Uber had this policy for marketers could have access to a lot of data, as opposed to Oracle. You could actually see the entire funnel. You could actually track the conversions from the first interaction, first moment anyone's heard of you, from the first trip to 100,000 trips later. And that was all accessible through SQL at Uber. And so I dove into SQL. I wanted to learn that, to have access to that data. And that's where I discovered not necessarily the data side of things, but data combined with an overview across the funnel, across various moments of interactions, and that freedom that I was feeling of being able to answer curiosities, questions I would have about these people's behaviors. And then there was Planable, and that's kind of what brought everything together. Planable came with the freedom of doing anything as well, not only coming up with ideas and looking at the data, but actually acting on it however way you like. And that was my path to this golden role that I found.
Super stuff. So obviously you are expressing your deepest emotions around marketing. You're actually channeling extreme good energy towards this field. So I was thinking maybe you should give us 2 or 3 moments from your marketing career up until now, which you would describe to be more crucial, more significant from what you can recall.
One that
Maybe some formative experiences, maybe some even some negative experience, which you draw some conclusions, which propulsated you forward in your career.
Yeah, I think one, now that you've put it that way, one that came to mind was there was this moment when I was in the world of corporations in which I made some sort of mistake, and then someone pointed it out to me, and the first thing I did was reply to that email and say, I take the responsibility. I'm super sorry, my fault, blah blah blah. And then the advice from peers at the time was never say you were wrong in writing. Never apologize, never admit. That was the advice. And I remember that felt very wrong to me. It just felt like, this is not what? No, this is not what this should look like. But I understood, a lot of, if you're surrounded by politics in your day-to-day job all the time, then it becomes a lot more about navigating the relationships inside the organization than your initial instincts. But that was a very important moment for me, because it felt so wrong that I realized I don't think I'm cut out for the big corps, at least not right now, not in this moment in which I was young, so I was vulnerable. I was very easily influenced by these kind of advice. Now I wouldn't have a problem. I wouldn't listen to it. But back then, yeah. So that was one moment. Another one, I think, was when I came to interview to Planable. The first question I asked, one of the first questions I asked on my side of things, on what was important for me to find at this job, was how much access do I have to data? What is off limits to me? Which I think, for a founder looking for growth, is a very good thing to hear. I mean, Ksenia, at least our CEO, shared that that was important for her, because access to data means you're curious, means you want to learn more. But that was also a moment for me in which I realized, okay, so this is the access to it all is very important to me. So the more levels of bureaucracy and of confidentiality and within the organization is a blocker for me for what I want to do with this role. The third, I don't know if I have anything top of mind now. I could reuse the one at Oracle when I first discovered analytics and Excel and everything. That was probably a very important turning point. I don't know if I would have gotten it on my own. Think, hey, let's open an Excel.
Would you include here also, when you mention analytics, would you include also BI, business intelligence? You're also referring to that sort of analytics, or just, let's say, more analytics focused on the marketing side of things?
No. I love all kinds of analytics, product marketing, and business, very much so. But obviously, my day-to-day means a lot of marketing analytics, but I get involved into the business intelligence ones too.
When you kind of went on this journey, which is a kind of similar journey to what I've been on myself, where you kind of go from this kind of creative passion, so to speak, or this kind of curiosity, then you have this realization that you also like these other elements of marketing too, and then stepping into a more generalist role. What would you say were the biggest challenges when you kind of went from working at these kind of more corporate type companies to then suddenly being at a smaller kind of like fresher company, and then scaling that kind of team that you have there and taking on the CMO role? What would you say were the biggest kind of learning kind of steps within that process?
The biggest learning and the biggest um, surprise I had when I started at Planable was that I came with this hunger for working the funnel, and I was very eager to do so. But one thing you learn when you join a very early stage company is that if there's not a lot of volume, there's not a lot of work you can do on the funnel. If you have a few hundred visitors, there's only so much you can do there. So it is contrary to all the blogs, to what all the blogs and articles say, but that's the time you should probably focus on bringing more, at least of the, even if when, especially when the ticket size is so small. So if you have like a small average value, then you need more acquisition at first. So that was a big learning because I was so excited to work that funnel, to look at the entire journey. Another one was the biggest difference is the amount of responsibility when you come from a big company to a small one. It sounds, maybe, I mean, it wasn't top of mind for me. I didn't really think about it until I actually joined. The realization that so much is actually on your shoulders, so much, as opposed to, a big company. It's not going to die because you don't do your job. It's not going to, you will move the needle, of course, but you'll probably not make it or break it. And when you join a small company at early stage, you have to do the most you can. Of course, there are factors beyond your control, but you need to know that you're at peace with yourself, that you're doing absolutely anything in your power to make this company, to build growth for this company.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges I've kind of experienced is it's this kind of like dual thing of you can't do things in quite a kind of mechanical structured way yet because you're trying to build something almost from scratch. And B, you always want to turn up every day and be confident you're really making an impact. And yet it's not so tangible. So it's always like you're chasing yourself to keep doing more a little bit.
And as Miruna said, you cannot actually start and work the funnel from the actual beginning, because you need to actually set the foundations first, set the procedures, actually identifying which is worth pursuing, which is not worth pursuing. But even if I'm diving deeper into Miruna's background, or not actually background, because at the current role, how would you describe your current role, and how large is your marketing department? What kind of jobs there are in the marketing department? You have design, you have like demand gen.
Yeah, so we are 8 people in the marketing team now. The growth team, which also includes customer success and support. We also have one person on creative, which includes design, but it's also on brand and other, connected areas. Performance marketing and SEO and content marketing, which at Planable are very tied together. And that's about 3 people, split between content writing, technical SEO, and more, content marketing in general.
And what's that growth been like in terms of the size of the team? Was it kind of one person every few months, or did you suddenly get to a stage where you kind of mass recruited quite a large chunk of that team?
It was, for the most part, one person at a time. I think that depends a lot on the type of people running the team and the company. It's the level of speed you're comfortable with. For me, we put a high price on the people that we recruit, on the relationships that we form. We're not necessarily in that hire fast and see what happens mindset. We're more into, okay, let's really try to find the right people, integrate them within the team, make sure the team has, it's united, it gets along. So that kind of contributed to this way of doing things a bit slower in terms of team recruiting. And also, I don't feel very comfortable hiring people until I have some idea into what these people will do. Because there are a lot of times when you grow, when you know you need more people, but you're not sure what they would do. So you start with this process that's kind of halfway. You think of something, but if you find a person that has other skills, maybe you'll switch things. And that I did that too. That works too. But when we first start to define a need that we have, I prefer testing it a bit with outsourcing, trying freelancers or services, and first of all, validate that need for a bit, and then decide, okay, if someone in-house is needed.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We've scaled ridiculously quickly this year. So we've gone from around 5 people to kind of 15, 16 when you include sales success as well. And so the challenges obviously for me have been, it kind of really shifts your own day to day as well.
Yeah.
How have you found that, the difference between you kind of being the only marketing person or one of just a couple to suddenly having a team also working kind of with you as well?
Yeah, that was a humongous challenge, and it constantly is, because your role has to change. And it's Ksenia, I think, told me this at the beginning, this challenge that founders have and early stage employees have of growing with the company, and this danger that you could stay behind. I mean, Planable could at some point grow faster than I can. And that was a big, important thing that stuck with me. And I tried to always look at it from this angle. It's challenging. I tried to be very honest about my skills, where what I'm good at and what I'm not. That's, I think, is vital, because of course you can do a lot of things, and you're hybrid. Since you're an early stage marketer, you most probably are very hybrid, but you still have some skills that you excel at and you feel comfortable doing, and you have some that sure you can do now because you have no resources, but ideally you'd hire a professional.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a very important part for me. And then the adjusting was, I tried to keep parts, tasks that I really cared about that weren't necessarily justifiable in terms of, should I be doing this as the CMO, or maybe should I delegate this? I tried to keep like 10%, 20% of my time for tasks that I know motivate me, make me happy. So maybe it doesn't make sense that I spend my time doing some sort of Excel that helps the productivity of the team or the analytics or something, but I want to do it, and it's important for my level of motivation and just general mental health.
That's always like a constant question, right? Is I have the same thing as well, where it's kind of, should I be doing this? I've worked for 6 hours on this project, because I really was passionate about it. I wanted to get deep into it, but is that the best use of my time? But you're right, you have to balance those things. And I think the approach of keeping some to yourself is a good one.
Yeah, it's a matter of balance. I don't believe in scraping everything off. That's just not going to work. You're just going to feel guilty, but you'll keep doing it. So it's better to kind of make it in doses. Have a few hours that you set aside for doing that task you love, even if it doesn't make sense, in terms of efficiency.
Just to go a bit deeper in terms of Planable, so is the company at the moment totally bootstrapped, or did you accept any external investment?
We did have some investment, not very high rounds. We just had we went through Techstars, so that was it, and we had another few investors and a seed round.
I see. Okay, I'm asking because lots of companies from the tech industry are actually whether are being acquired or are being invested in, and they're able to operate with this burn rate, obviously, but also to expand on the marketing efforts as well, whether if it's hiring new people or actually investing in buying ads or however you want to put it. Would you say would at the moment be necessary for Planable to have, or let me ask you another, let me put it another way. Where would you think uh, resources would be allocated at the moment in terms of marketing for Planable? Would you hire some more people? Would you go more aggressively on buying ads?
I think we would invest more in more resources within the team. That would mean people. And SEO would be our next priority. Ads is growing steadily, but we've tried the the biggest temptation of just double the investment, you'll double the results. We did place a bet on that, even though we knew it wasn't going to work, and it didn't, obviously. But we're very fine with the steady increase in investment in ads, but steady, but mild, not doubling the investment. And but on SEO, we want more resources. It's very much proving its worth. It's our second biggest revenue generator in terms of marketing efforts. So yeah, we want to invest more there, more time, more resources, more people, more tools, more anything.
Sounds good. Because this is the Website Intelligence podcast, we like to talk a little bit about websites as well. So at Planable, what kind of role would you say that your website plays, and kind of how important would you say it is to your overall kind of lead gen activities, brand activities, all these different things?
Yeah, the website is central to everything we do. It's very important. A lot of our business is self-service, so that means that the website is everything. It acts as an acquisition channel too, because we have SEO, a big revenue generator. So I would consider for SEO that the website is actually acquisition, not even conversion, but actual acquisition. Of course, conversion, we have so much traffic coming in from ads, first of all, and the better the conversion, the lower the CAC is there. So that's very important. And we have all word of mouth traffic, which not a lot of people talk about, but a lot of that traffic is inexplicable, and that's probably word of mouth, or people heard of you somewhere somehow, and that's a big chunk that we want to convert, and make sure they not only convert but also qualify. It also acts like that as well, a qualifier of our visitors. So a lot of roles.
Just to quickly cut in there. So since you joined your company, Planable, was it the same website, or did you go through a process of actually changing the website or branding, or?
We went through that process. Yeah, we changed the entire website, the branding, the copy, everything.
Can you dive deeper in terms of how did you go about actually changing the website? What were the processes? Did you have maybe any benchmarks, or how did you go about it?
Yeah, the reason why we did it was, first of all, the brand was just one of those brands that the co-founder started at a very early random moment in time when they were part of an accelerator. So it wasn't meant to last in any way. It was just meant to get them going. So that was needed in terms of branding. And in terms of website, because the branding was old, we never actually developed it. It was all very chaotic. Whenever we needed a page, we just scraped something together to get it done. So we needed consistency. We needed a new brand. And we felt like we needed great design was part of Planable's brand from the first day, with two co-founders very focused and very passionate about beautiful UX and beautiful design. That had to be a part of it. The process that we chose, not necessarily, it's the one that we chose, is to work with different people that we found best at a very unique part of that process. So we didn't go to an agency and purchase, new website, new branding, plus, 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 kind of all included in package. But we had an agency that was very specific for rebranding and very with a lot of experience in SaaS. We worked with a conversion copywriter for the copywriting of our new website. We worked with a UX designer for the general UX design. And we worked with a 3D illustrator and animator for the actual illustrations. So a lot of people were involved.
So it seems it were more external people.
Yeah,
correct?
pretty much everyone was external.
I see. All right.
And then from the kind of like the data side of things and the performance side of things. So when you went from that old website that you had originally and you moved towards the new one, like did you kind of already note down some like kind of key like benchmarks in terms of the current performance and focus on how they would be improved with the new website? And B, kind of like as an ongoing thing, how do you kind of track and measure and kind of keep a oversight over how your website is performing as time goes by?
Yeah, so regarding the benchmarks, I wouldn't say we did it the best way. In theory, a full change of the website just like that is not recommended as far as I've heard and seen on my own skin. It's not great just because ideally you'd change parts of it, see how that goes. But it's a lot harder to do when you do a full rebranding as well. And you don't want people to see a patched up website. You feel like that will hurt your new brand. So we took the risk. We just changed everything. That hurt us in the way that, first of all, the performance of the new website was very bad at first in terms of just the loading of it. It was very heavy, wasn't optimized. It was 3 days of intense compressing and testing and adding new tools and plugins and everything to make it, first of all, load and work. Then the conversion rate dropped. Of course it did, because it was all based on assumptions. The past website had quite a lot of A/B tests in the past, but we kind of scratched that and started with all assumptions. And then it felt a bit like starting from scratch in terms of conversion. It meant A/B tests from the start. I went back to a lot of the conversation and debates we had on the copy, on the visuals, on everything, because a lot of it's subjective. Someone wants product visuals, someone wants illustrations, someone wants bold copy, someone wants clear copy, and so on and so forth. So I started with all of those debates and just started testing who was right, basically. But it was a lot of the work done before was, I wouldn't say lost. It was just a few months that we had to get back to where we started even. And we did have the benchmarks, yes, but we had to get back to them and then continue iterating. And it's very hard to say it helped or not in terms of conversion. Maybe if we optimized the old website more, we would have gotten to the same point.
I think it's quite natural sometimes with these big global kind of projects, which are also like passion projects as well. So the founders are usually very passionate about how their brand looks. Do they recognize it as their kind of company? How the website looks? And sometimes, you do have to just kind of jump straight in and then try and optimize and tweak and fix as you move along.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense that was the decision at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So slightly moving to our next section, which we will talk about more about technology in general, but in a more specific case, what about Planable? So because we know from starting with the pandemic, everyone started to work remotely, people needed more collaborative tools, so on and so forth. How are you guys going about implementing, let's say, remote working technology, or how are you guys viewing technology in your company as general perceptions? Just some general thoughts.
Yeah, technology is highly, highly important and Planable. First of all, we are a technology company, so it's not it's not just about what we need, but it's also a deep value for us as a company. We want to use the best technology because we want to be inspired as well. We want, when we use other products, we want to be inspired and we want to say, Planable has to do better. Planable has to be a better product, a more impressive product, a more inspirational product, a better serve our clients. So that's a big part. And also that's just a general passion for a lot of us. Since we work at a technology company, it's cool for us to test new products, to see new technology. It's just it's part of what we want to do. Not sure if
How
I
did you
answered
go
that.
about like building that? Like, I mean, when you joined Planable, for example, was there much in terms of like a martech stack that existed, or was it your role pretty much to start building that relatively from scratch? And what was that kind of process like? What were the foundations? How did you evolve that kind of process over time?
Yeah, I mean, for three people, I think we used a lot of tools back then, but not so many in terms of marketing, obviously. Um, and with tools, we pretty much went with the biggest, needs that we had at the time, the vital core ones, and then, depending on the resources, the others were just a matter of when we get the resources to actually implement new technology. But yeah, it was always a big part of the role to find and test technology. It's also about being open-minded, because some technology comes with these big promises, and you might be very reluctant. I usually, when some new technology is being pushed and I feel like I'm very resistant to it, I first do the math of whether, how much does it have to bring, how much does it have to impact conversion in order for us to get the ROI, a positive ROI on that. And if it makes sense, if it sounds doable, I'll test it out for a few months, a year sometimes. Some tools are harder it takes a lot longer to actually see results from it.
Yeah. On that point, I have a slightly kind of like, what's the word? Like a digressing type of question, just because this is something that I'm always thinking about and trying to challenge myself about. Is Planable's a freemium product, right? So is it an unlimited freemium, or is it a time limited freemium? Or
It's a usage-based freemium, usage-limited
okay,
freemium. So you, at some point, you have to pay. It's you have the first 50 posts for free, but those never kind of reset. Once you get to the 50 posts, you have to choose one of the paid plans.
okay. And based on this is a very broad question, but it's based on the fact that it is a freemium product and the pricing operates in this way. How do you think that changes the strategy you have in terms of acquisition and where you focus both your strategy and your resources in terms of growth? Like, how does having a freemium product differ from having a kind of premium product?
It changes a lot. It's the whole strategy is just, first of all, it changes a bit on what's the main driver, marketing or sales. Premium product, usually marketing has to has this role of warming up the audience, of having them interested at first. That's what they have to get to that interesting part. So interested enough to talk to sales and to discover the product. When for kind of freemium models means you have to drive interest towards the product and try them themselves, and then you have to convert that to paid. So that has, it's a lot more actions across the entire funnel, everything, and then, you clash with products sometimes because you're responsible for onboarding too, because you have to see those customers converting, and you can't see them converting if, they don't onboard, if they don't discover the product. So it's a lot of, I think it's a very different marketing, very different approach.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a little bit about how kind of sales and success kind of somehow come underneath like you as well in marketing. I think that's kind of what happens here currently. I think that's quite a natural move to make as well, right? Because the journey of that like marketing role does spread into the product, into the kind of product-led growth side of things, into the conversion, into the success area too. So it makes a lot more sense that everything's kind of all in one team, and you're in control of the whole funnel, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that it's a big difficulty, honestly, because it's a lot of, you would like growth marketing ideal as a growth marketer, you would like growth marketing to have power over the entire funnel. But pretty much, I mean, the entire funnel clashes with every other part of the company. The product wants ownership on product, and then sales wants some ownership in the onboarding process and in the marketing tactics as well. Because maybe you're not bringing the right leads, and then there's a lot of moments of shared ownership, and it's important to get accustomed to a collaboration.
That's it. Absolutely. We have the same kind of challenges, I guess, here as well. Is that, like you said, everything that you do, it impacts product. You have so many shared areas. Likewise with sales, you kind of start having this more traditional sales approach where you have like demos and things like this.
More one-to-one.
Yeah, and then you realize the maths doesn't quite add up, and that's when you have to kind of shift strategy a little.
Because I wanted also to indulge maybe one of my personal curiosities. Do you go about the enterprise accounts in a specific way, or you're formulating in a different way the strategy to approach those enterprise clients, or it's kind of you're going for the market as a whole?
I wouldn't say we've figured that out yet. We have been going for the market as a whole, but for 3 quarters now, I've been testing other ways to go about it. I don't think it's the best way to just go mass market and see what, what enterprise slips in. I would like to be more intentional about it. But if you start with growth freemium first, you lack these skills. So we're kind of also learning here. We're progressing. I'm trying to the way I'm trying right now, I'm not saying it's working yet, but what I'm trying to do is collaborate with sales to find niches of their audience that they find convert very well, and our marketing probably doesn't intentionally target them. Of course, they could also be interested in the content that we do, but it's not dedicated towards them. So I'm trying to build content initiatives that are dedicated for bringing sales leads, enterprise sales leads. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously for the enterprise, just to stay on the same note, it's also, we're talking about many more touch points than the SMBs. Let's see, there are many decision makers there. You need to target those in a specific way. So that's why I was really curious if you have such a thing at the moment. But yeah,
we've just tried one. We've had one ABM experiment. It wasn't enough of a success for us to focus on that right now, just because limited
was it
resources.
more focused on LinkedIn, or it was more on the email side of things?
Both, and ads, everything.
Both,
one
okay.
of those ABM
I see,
try
yeah,
to
yeah.
touch them in all different
Everything,
all
yeah.
directions.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
Going back to the tech side of things, just quickly as well, is you kind of mentioned at the beginning that as soon as you kind of came across SQL and this kind of approach, you were really excited. Same with analytics later on. What would you say right now is the kind of like product or product family, so to speak, that is like you're most enthusiastic about opening each day and taking a look at? What's your kind of go-to platform across anything to do with marketing?
So I'm always enthusiastic to open Chat Mogul because that always tells us how much money we're making. So that's always thrilling to see. And I work a lot in inner trends. That's a lot. I spend a lot of time there because I want to see the journey, how that looks like. And I still kept SQL. MongoDB has a product for this that kind of translates databases into SQL, and I still spend some time there for these moments when I have weird curiosities. I have these weird questions that I just want to answer.
Just get lost in a little SQL rabbit hole.
Yes, it's dangerous, but I set aside time for it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Super. So, because I was wondering as you were describing the strategy for marketing, and when I asked you about the enterprise, so when we're thinking about the funnel, how do you go about creating funnels at the moment? For instance, at the top of the funnel, do you have any sort of piece of asset you're pushing most? For instance, educational content, or we're really curious about how you structure actually your funnel for the moment.
Yeah, so right now we don't have a lot of outbound. A lot of our
Hmm.
marketing is inbound, which has advantages and disadvantages. I don't believe in the rigid theories, outbound is bad, inbound is good. That's just not true. But we have a lot of inbound with our SEO, and I mean, even we do a lot of Google search ads, but I would even qualify them as closer to the inbound than the outbound part, and those are the two biggest awareness acquisition channels. The rest are experiments, not a lot of other channels proven, decided, and scalable right now. Social media is something that we try. Social media ads is something that we try, but hard to convert through those. That's the
And
upper
just
funnel.
another question on this side on strategy, for instance, because we're looking at lots of B2B marketing models and what are actually B2B companies doing at the moment. And we found that lots of them are actually starting to morph into this media companies as well, starting to produce content a lot, starting to launch podcast shows, starting to do initiatives on TikTok. Because more or less in the industry at the moment, I feel like everything is content first and product after. Do you have any initiatives in the media kind of sphere at the moment? Or
We've
do you think anything you would like to launch in the future? Yeah.
we've had a few, didn't work out. We've had our own podcast, got it just didn't make sense at some point. The level of effort that we were putting into it, because we also want to, try to do things very, very well, very high quality. And you can't do high quality, limited resources, and a lot of high quality stuff. So, had a podcast, had tried even a video series at some point. We tried a lot of things in the media um, area. I would say we went a
Mhm.
bit the other way around. We kind of tried this early on, when by default they didn't have that much chance to succeed because we
Mhm.
were so early stage and didn't have an outbound audience. Even an inbound audience was quite small. Right now we're focused on SEO driven content, then that can mean a lot of things. It's not just blogs,
Yeah.
but even if we do ebooks or tools or
Mhm.
interactive content, that still starts from at least an SEO insight. Um,
Mhm.
and we try to merge the two, because you said, content first, product after. I feel like there's a way you can overdo it. You might be too focused on your content and forget that you have a product to sell, and just either go too far or just forget to convert those people. I made that mistake. Us as a marketing efforts made that mistake a lot of times. We realized we were just too shy about our product. I mean, end of day, that is what you're selling. And if we start with the product when we defined content, that's something that I'd like to say here, rather than think about our audience. Okay, our audience is social media marketers and social media managers. What do they want to know? Maybe they want to know about analytics. Maybe they want to know about tactics, and trying to serve them content that they want to know. We started with the product. What do we have? We have this feature. What does that help them with content pillars? Okay, let's start creating content about content pillars that makes sense for our product too, not just for our audience.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think we've also, I mean, both in previous roles, but also here, fallen into that trap a little bit. Where you think this is our ICP, they're kind of like us. We're interested in all these different topics, so let's write about all of them. And at some stage, you kind of, when you try to pillar it and structure it, bring it back to your product, you can get a little bit lost. So
Yeah.
it's a good approach to start. Yeah, start from the end point and then kind of work your way back and create a structure in that way. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You've mentioned SEO a lot, but in terms of like other focus areas, both not only for the company and for the marketing department, but also for yourself personally, what would you say are kind of the biggest focus areas that you have over the next, say, 9 to 12 months? Things you want to learn more about, things you want to do more of? What would you say those kind of main things are?
For me personally, I want to dedicate more time to the macro way of looking at things. There are these times I just was discussing about a topic on at How to Web, and that kind of made me do a lot of research into growth strategies as a whole and forced me into that macro way of looking at things. And I realized, I have to do this more often, because it's one thing to do the day to day, but then, and a lot of people say it, but you don't realize it until you actually do a bit of strategic thinking, that you realize, oh wait, it's been a while. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest priority right now, to dedicate the time of drawing up our strategies and of looking at what others do and joining communities, but not only joining, but being an active part of communities. That's also something I'm not excellent at, but yeah, those are some of the goals.
I can highly recommend this. I don't know if you've heard about it, but this Exit 5 community. It's like
No.
David Gerhardt, the old VP of Drift. He now has his company Exit 5, and it's like a paid Facebook community. It's pretty cheap, but the quality of the conversations on there is so good. Every single question that's posed, every single conversation is always really interesting. And there's kind of like, what's the word, like community only webinars and events and things. So it's a super interesting thing to be part of.
That's awesome. I wrote it down. I'm definitely gonna look into it.
Cool.
And diving even more deep into the, also now switching to the personal issue subjects, not issues, sorry. But I was thinking, because many marketing or aspirational marketing people actually think about, okay, should I study marketing? Should I go about actually finishing a marketing university? How should I approach this topic if I want to go into that direction in terms of my career? What would you, what would a couple of advices you would give a young person who would like to go into marketing? Is it worth actually going to the marketing university?
Um, I think there is a foundation that can be useful throughout the years while you practice marketing. Funnels, okay, they are so different right now than they used to be, than the classic one that you learn at the university, but you still get the concept of what a funnel is and how to think about it. I don't know what I would advise, honestly. I think it depends on the type of person you are. If you're a very, very proactive human being, you can leave the university aside. If you're afraid that you might not, spend a lot of time into learning on your own, university could give you that structure, that nudge to focus on marketing, but it won't be the only and most important source of your learning by following today's communities, threads, people, professionals that actually work in marketing is the way to go.
And if you could go back, I mean, obviously you're in a very nice position, nice role, great company now, so you probably wouldn't change too much. But if you were to go back to kind of, even before university maybe, and kind of knowing, then what you kind of know now in terms of where you want to be and what you want to do, like what kind of approach do you think you would have taken in terms of, what kind of companies would you have sought out for those early roles that you took? What kind of stuff would you have done off your own back to kind of, you've been pretty quick anyway, but maybe to go even faster towards exactly where you want to be?
Yeah, I think maybe I would have looked more at how integrated a company is in terms of their marketing. Silos in marketing in the early days doesn't give you a lot of leeway into what you can learn and what you can practice. And I think in the early days of your career, it would be, in an ideal world, you could touch and see every little bit of marketing that's being done, at least in that company. But if those teams are entirely segregated, then you'll only get to see a piece of it. So that would be something that I would probably tell myself at a younger age. Look at those very, very dynamic workplaces.
I guess the same is true even for like silos within the company as well. Often, depending on sector, but often it can be the case still today where marketing itself exists within a little bit of a silo. And when you work in those companies, you're the kind of guy who does the social media, does some design stuff, writes some nice messages now and then, creates some sales decks. And when you do that, you're also not learning too quickly. So when the whole company kind of understands and values marketing, and you don't have those like departmental silos as well, that also enables you to accelerate your understanding in this way.
I saw a meme about you, what you said here. I saw a meme the other day about life. It said something like, "Life is too short to be a marketer working in a company that doesn't value marketing." And
Yeah, exactly.
I think that could be considered true. Having this uphill battle in which you constantly have to convince everyone that what you're doing matters can be very exhausting.
Absolutely.
Perfect stuff. So moving on to our last segment, which is actually one of the favorites to our most loyal tweepers. It's actually top 5 of you decide. So whether you think it's top 5 books, whether it is top 5 tools or pieces of apps you're using on a daily basis, and even if it's not like 5 things, just give us some brief things you close to your soul, let's say, professionally speaking.
Top 5 things. Top 5 things if I decide. Well, I'll go.
I know books is a popular one usually, but maybe if you have something more
newsletters.
anything else in mind.
Newsletters.
Which one? Sorry.
Newsletters. I can do top 5
perfect.
newsletters.
Even perfect.
Yes. So.
But you need to give us some quick descriptions on is just for our audience to know about.
Okay.
Each
sure.
of it, yeah.
So The Hustle, amazing newsletter. It's a general news and business and world type, but it has a beautiful copy, very and very responsible in their research. So The Hustle is one. Reforge, very good resource for growth marketing and now product marketing and product in general. They're diversifying, but beautiful newsletter and in general blogs. SaaSter for those who work in SaaS.
Yeah, definitely.
They have such amazing content, short, brief, and to the point, but so genius.
Even their podcast is pretty useful.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Lots of useful things there. Yeah.
Yeah, true. So I gave 3. Let me think.
You can add exit 5, the one I've just given you for. I
can cheat and add exit 5. Yeah. Please Advise is a pretty good newsletter too. I'm sure there is one more that I am missing that I really enjoy. But yeah.
If not, yeah, no, it's all right. So your preferred way to consume content, I would assume, or one would assume, it's reading actually newsletters. Is it correct? Or if you have some other form of consuming content, just let us know as well.
Yeah, I really enjoy newsletters actually because I can curate my own list and I can it does require discipline into constantly curating your inbox, unsubscribing from all the stuff that you realize, even if you enthusiastically subscribe to it, if you 5 months later you've read 1 out of 10 newsletters, it's probably not something you actually enjoy reading. So I really enjoy it. Yes. Audio podcasts too. I like them because there are a lot of times throughout the day or week in which that's the only form of content I can consume, audio. So yeah, those 2.
Could you possibly or does this exist? Can you like recall a time? This is just me with my kind of marketing hat on. Recall a time where you've kind of gone from newsletter towards a product or a website and ended up like making that journey, if you like. You heard about it first in a newsletter, and then you kind of investigated deeper and went on to get something.
Oh, I think that definitely happened. I don't know if probably not the company's newsletter, but in a different newsletter. Oh, it's for sure. I signed up to a few products after I was subscribed to a Product Hunts newsletter, and I think
Yeah.
that's how I discovered Sunsama, which is a task management tool. So that's probably an example.
Are you using that at the moment
Yeah.
in your company?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Perfect stuff. Super. So unless Matt doesn't have any other questions, I ran out of them. But anyways, Miruna, thank you very much. I think our audience will dive deep into our conversation. And by the way, where can people find you? Is you're more active on LinkedIn?
Yes, LinkedIn is
Perfect.
the best platform to find me and reach out.
Super. We'll make sure we are gonna link the link in the description as well, so people can find you as well. Many thanks for coming to our TWIP podcast, which stands, by the way, for the website intelligence podcast. And I'll see you, Miruna, next week. And you guys, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye.